And we are recording. Good day. This is a beautiful, beautiful morning in September. Yeah. And I wanted to put together this short video on converting this to an electronic control so that you can use electronic focuser to bypass the fact that the actual electronic focusing system is not working anymore. And in the previous video, I explained about how you would convert it to manual by using a Crayford on the back, and also on how you will collimate this, because obviously the collimation controls are built into the handset, and if the handset is not working, or at least if the system itself is not working, then how do you collimate? And the problem seems to be that there's some kind of communication issue between the board and perhaps the front limiters or the encoders in the back. I'm not sure what, but anyways, I couldn't find any solution on the internet. I also want to mention that if you are recording video and you lose your microphone clip, you can use your dad's old tie clip. Works just as well, okay? So here we go. A few quick points, and I'm hoping you can see these details. As I mentioned before, the focusing mechanism travels forward on this rail right here, and there's a screw drive, and there are three on the front, and they're operated by the three motors in the back. Now, when you're collimating this type of telescope, if you consider the collimation for a normal SCT, when you turn, let's say, a screw inwards and the opposite screw outwards, you're tilting that portion, that part when you're turning it inwards, towards your primary. So if you can imagine, this is your secondary mirror here, and you have 1, 2, 3 screws, and you have your primary. If you loosen these to tighten that one, turning it inwards, you're actually tilting it that way, okay? And if you go the other way and you loosen this one to tighten these two, you're going that way. With this, it's kind of the opposite. When you rotate either one of these screws inwards, the actual cell that holds the corrector plate and the secondary inside, which is not adjustable, is pulled away from the primary. So when you turn it inwards, it's opposite. It actually does this. And last night I was trying to collimate on Polaris. Really, really close, but I was still getting those little spikes, and I just kept on going the wrong way, and I frustrated myself. So I'm going to have to give it another try tonight, providing the other sides are clear. All right, so just keep that in mind. And also, remember, don't put a lot of force on it, because this is still connected to the back with a shaft, and those rubber couplers, you don't want to stress them and have them slip out, because then your arm will fall off, and you've got to take the motor off and reassemble it, and blah. You don't want to do that, okay? Also, the front and rear diodes for the travel limiters, they're still sending a signal to the board, but obviously, because you're not using the built-in motors via the handset, the scope, the handset, or the control that you're using will not indicate a reach limit on your handset as it would with a stock unit, okay? So you want to, keep that in mind, that you don't want to over focus one way or the other and have the motors drive the mechanisms to past the limiters and onto the hard stops, because you could damage your motor. But there's so much breathing space in here that I found that I could focus from my 32 millimeter right down to my 3.5 and not have any issues at all. I haven't tried a camera yet, and that usually that changes the hill focus. So we'll have to see about the back set for that. Right now it's not an issue. Now on the back here, what I've done is let me go the other way, sorry. I've removed the rear cover, which is removed by removing the 4 Allen fasteners here. Also, please note that the fan is connected to this jumper, one right here, JP2. And if you just pull it off, you're going to damage this, which I almost did. So you take it off, put your hand through the opening for the visual back, and just have that rest. So when you undo it, you can take it off. Also note that there will be glue on all of these connectors, every single one. It's just from a hot glue gun, so you may have to peel those off gently. So you see, it can be a little tricky, and you're going to do this at your own risk. If you damage your board beyond the damage that you're already experiencing, which is the non-focus issue, you could basically fry the entire board. Okay, so be really careful. So this motor, and this motor here, they are connected to the board with black and red leads. Those are the power leads, and they go through these ferrites onto the boards, and you have jumper 8, 6, and 10. Now, if you have taken yours off, before you take those off, make note of where they go, and put a little number on the side of the actual connector when you take it off, so that you don't mix them up in case you ever put them back, because then you're going to be getting some other issues if you luckily find another board. Also, please post that on the site or on this page, so that if you do take yours off, just note which motor, which is on which jumper, and note that for future reference for everyone else. Okay, that would be appreciated. Now, what I've done is I made a controller. This is one that I had made for my LS8 mount that had a physical damage on the board, and I turned it into a conventional alt-azimuth mount. Worked great, but I didn't really need that, so I just replaced the mount itself with a used mount, and the controller is now being repurposed for now. And there is a toggle on, off, on for my direction, and there is a adjuster here for output. So I can go from full speed to incredibly slow speed, which is really great if you do that fine adjustment. It can be a little frustrating using this because you have to on, off, on, and sometimes you overshoot. So what I do sometimes, I put on very slow, and then I use the actual switch to shut the power off when I get to my proper point. I'm going to change all this anyways, but for now that's fine. And for power, I just have a AA8 cell, which gives me 12 volts. Here, I just put that on like that. To show you. It's not beautiful, but it's functional. And right now it's just taped together. And then when I turn one of the switches on, I could focus, vary my speed, change my direction. I'm just going to go back to the center. You got that for now. I also want to mention that I did check all the components on the motors in the back, and there weren't any cracks in the little encoder wheels. I can't find anything obvious in the system that would have caused that defect, so I'm assuming it's the software. Anyways, in order to make sure that each of the motors receive the exact same amount of voltage output, I'm only using one controller output from this controller board in here. It's a tiny little board that has your voltage input, and then it has your outputs, for the motors. And this one has, I think, 2 or maybe 3 separate controllers, which is how I was able to use it for alt-azimuth. In this case, I just used one, and I made a triple connector. So each of these will have 3 separate connectors, 3 for the ground and 3 for the 12 volt positive, going to each of the motors. Okay, so it's the same line be split 3 ways, or 3 if you're from the other part of the continent, and each will go to one lead here. So you have 3, and then you have 1, 2, 3, receiving 12 volts each. That way I know that each of the motors is getting the exact same output from that board. If the board has 2 outputs and you use 2 different leads, it could be that you're getting slight variations in the output, which means that the motors will travel at different speeds, and then you're going to throw it out of collimation. Now, having said that, if any of these motors is not operating at optimum, then it could be that you will lose collimation. But then you would have done that even with the original system. If one of your motors was off, you would have noticed that you were losing collimation when you try to focus, and that can be frustrating. So, as mentioned previously, you can go manual, and you just achieve your focus points by collimating with your widest eyepiece and then the other one. But in this case, because I now have a motor, I would find my focus point for, let's say, a 32 millimeter, throw it out of focus, try to see if the collimation is off, and then maybe use a stronger eyepiece, and then again just adjust these three properly, which I'm not doing, but I've got to try it again, just by using a simple connector here, and that's ratchet, and that's just like 5/16 size. So you put that on like that, you can gently rotate clockwise or counterclockwise, so in or out, and use small movements, and don't put a lot of torque on, because again you don't want to dislodge the shaft, because then you lose your connection. Okay. What you can also do before you start is use a measuring device to measure the distance between this block here and the inside of the frame, and see if they're all three the same. That'll give you reasonably close collimation. If you're off by too much, then you're going to be way off, and you won't know where to start. That just helps you out a bit. Okay, so I hope that worked. That helps you for now. Again, what I will do is make a new one, and what I want to do is have a new one with 3 separate on-off switches, so that I can shut off each of the motors independently and then do my collimation electronically. All right, and there'd be a little cover so that I don't accidentally knock them off when I'm trying to focus and then throw everything out of whack. And probably replace this with a simple on-off push-button switch, one top and one bottom for forward and backwards. Maybe recess one so I don't grab them by mistake and change my focus, I'm not sure. And the power, I could then make a separate line that will plug into the 12-volt DC out on the mount output, so that I don't have to worry about an external battery supply that you might run out of power through a viewing session and then you can't focus. So I hope this has been useful, and if you have any questions, please write them in there. I may not be able to answer them, but someone else might be able to. Also, if you have yours off, please note those 3 connectors, and then just start jot them off in the response area, please, so we can all share that information. Have yourself a great day, and clear skies to you.